All right, everyone. The weirdness continues in Pennsylvania with McCormick and Casey. Of course, that race has been called for McCormick by a margin of about 25,000 votes, which means an automatic recount, of course. It's very, very close. It's within a percentage point, so there's an automatic recount there. Now, Casey has refused to concede. He's the Democrat incumbent. Perfectly fine. That's his right. But now Democratic officials in certain parts of the state are effectively ignoring a state Supreme Court order with regards to ballot counting. I couldn't believe this. I mean, I got sent this. I was unaware of this happening because, of course, the legacy media in general is not going to talk about it at all. But I was looking at this. You'll never believe what one official actually says here. This is a quote from a Democratic official. So effectively, they're ignoring the court order that said, okay, undated or post-dated ballots can't be counted. That's, it's going to be some thousands of votes. I think we all know that by precedent, that precedent by a court doesn't matter anymore in this country. Bucks County Commissioner Diane Ellis Marseglia, a Democrat, said Thursday, as she and other Democrats voted to reject a GOP-led challenge to ballots that should be disqualified. People violate laws anytime they want. So for me, if I violate this law, it's because I want a court to pay attention. There's nothing more important than counting votes. While McCormick inevitably will remain the victor here, and people keep asking me about this, and they're like, oh, do you think that they'll flip it, against McCormick at the last minute? And there's definitely fraud going on. The Democrats appear to be openly admitting to the fact that they're counting ballots that shouldn't be counted at the moment. There's probably a reason for that. It's because they want a different outcome to that election. It won't swing the actual election, but it's very, very brazen. They're being very upfront about it. I suppose we should give them credit for at least being honest. Hey, yeah, we're counting ballots that we're not legally entitled to count in certain areas of this state. Very, very bizarre. You couldn't get more brazen than that. Court order? Yeah, well, fuck that. It doesn't really matter. Nobody pays attention anymore anyway. And you're not technically wrong, I suppose. There is a lot of blatant and willful violation of election law going on. It's been happening for a number of years, and it always has and it always will, which is why we need, for instance, voter ID. We need to end the mail-in ballot shuffle and so forth. We need election reform desperately in this country. It's weird. People in other countries are like, what the hell is going on over there? It used to be Florida was the big problem back in the 2000s when it was actually a swing state. Now the problem appears to be mainly Arizona and Pennsylvania, which is hysterical to me. In the wake of lockdownerism, a lot of rules were overhauled, sometimes illegally. For instance, in the state of Pennsylvania, how ironic that this would be happening there. Doesn't surprise me in the least. But to blatantly ignore the court order and say, well, yeah, we know that you've made your ruling, but it means absolutely nothing to us. My God, at some point, isn't a judge going to step in and do something about this? Apparently not. Apparently, Pennsylvania has descended into lawlessness and nobody cares anymore. They're stating it quite openly. Democrats insist they are acting in good faith in believing that rejecting someone's vote because of a clerical error violates their constitutional rights. Here's the thing. Your belief that it violates somebody's rights is not canonical under the law. The Supreme Court decision is canonical under the law. You can disagree with it all you want. And there are many, many court decisions, by the way, that do breach the Constitution. For instance, every example of anti-gunnery at the state level in the country violates the Second Amendment. But that's just your opinion, man. It might be that you're right, and we are right when we say this. But that doesn't mean that the court's decision isn't still legally binding insofar as it's capable of being enforced. The only difference is here it appears that the court doesn't have any interest in enforcing its own opinions with regards to the eligibility of ballots. I'm reading through this story. It goes from bad to worse. Democratic Board Chair Neil Machika voted to accept the ballot so that voters would not be disenfranchised, but other members of the board, including one Democrat and a Republican, voted to reject the ballots on the advice of county attorneys who determined the law clearly states they should not be counted. We're talking about constitutional rights, and I cannot take an action to throw out someone's ballot that is validly cast. Otherwise, over an issue that we know is immaterial, Machika said. During Thursday's meeting, the board ultimately voted to count a total of 501 contested ballots. So this is like hanging Chad all over again. You're probably going to get a similar Supreme Court decision. The hammer will fall at some point. They'll say, look, we've already made our decision. It's legally binding. It doesn't matter whether you think it's constitutional or not. We've already made that determination. It's depraved, actually, and so utterly brazen. Somebody's begging to get sued over this. It makes no sense. They're desperately trying to flip a race that they can't win anyway. There aren't enough provisional ballots at this point for McCormick to lose. He's been declared the victor for a reason. Is it within a razor's edge? Yes. Is it an automatic recount? Absolutely. That's perfectly fine. That pertains to the law in the state of Pennsylvania. But to brazenly and utterly ignore the court order, I've not seen anything like this, actually, in a long time. It harkens back to the 2000 election, when the Florida Supreme Court effectively minted who the President of the United States would be. That's the only doppelganger that I can think of. It's a very, very strange story. So yeah, I'll give more updates as updates are available because everyone keeps asking me about this race. Don't worry, McCormick will be the victor in the race. It's just, goddamn, they're getting all sorts of screwy with regards to trying to screw him. That's about all. Peace out.